The planet Zephyros was unlike any world Ethan Riker had ever seen. Its skies shimmered with green and violet clouds, and two suns cast golden streaks over the tall, spiraling towers of the central city. Markets sprawled across vast plazas, and beings of countless shapes and sizes moved in a constant hum of trade and conversation. Humans were still rare here, and Ethan often felt the weight of attention wherever he went. Today he had a purpose. He was not here as a tourist or adventurer. He was here as a representative of the Terran Alliance, sent to negotiate a technology exchange with the Valian Empire. His role demanded patience, intelligence, and an ability to navigate cultures far older and more complex than his own. Yet, despite the mission's importance, a small part of him always enjoyed seeing the unfamiliar, the way alien wings folded, the way scales glimmered under the twin suns, the mechanical precision of some robotic merchants moving through the crowds. Ethan had entered the largest market plaza, a grand expanse of floating platforms that glided gently above the surface. Vendors shouted in dozens of languages, selling items ranging from rare metals that shone like liquid gold to fabrics that seemed alive with shifting colors. He paused briefly at a stall displaying delicate, crystalline instruments that hummed softly when touched. A small crowd of Valian nobles had gathered nearby, their attention fixed on something or someone approaching the plaza's center. It was her. Princess Leora, heir to the Valian Empire, walked with effortless grace. At 19, she carried the poise of someone much older, and the arrogance of someone accustomed to having the universe bend around her whims. Her skin shimmered in tones of violet and silver, her eyes like polished gemstones, and her crown of delicate alloys sparkled even under the harsh market lights. She was surrounded by attendants and guards, yet her gaze seemed to search for something, or someone among the crowd. Ethan noticed her instantly. He had heard of the Valian princess before, of course, through diplomatic briefings and scattered rumors. She was young, clever, and notoriously sharp-tongued. Many who crossed her ended up humiliated, either verbally or through subtle displays of power. Yet as he watched her step into the market with such confidence, he felt no fear, only curiosity. Their eyes met. For a moment, the bustling sounds of the plaza faded into a quiet hum. Ethan felt a spark of challenge in her gaze, and he knew immediately that this encounter would not be ordinary. Leora stopped in front of a small crowd, including him, and tilted her head slightly, a gesture both casual and commanding. "You are human," she said, her voice carrying just enough volume for all around to hear. "I have heard much about your species. Clever, resourceful, but also small, fragile, and slow to learn. A species that survives more by luck than skill." The words cut through the air sharply. Many of the nearby aliens murmured in agreement as if expecting the human to react. Some even laughed quietly. Ethan, however, did not move. He did not raise his voice, nor did he flinch. He simply observed her, his posture relaxed, his expression calm. Leora's smile widened slightly, pleased with the effect of her insult. She leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Tell me, human, do you always walk so cautiously into worlds that clearly outmatch you? Or is it courage you pretend to have?" A hush fell over the crowd. They expected him to protest, to defend his species or at least react in some way, but Ethan did nothing. He simply turned. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped away. Not angrily, not hurriedly, just walked away. Without a word, the shock was palpable. Some of the onlookers gasped. A few aliens whispered nervously, unsure if they had witnessed rudeness or extraordinary self-control. Princess Leora's eyes widened. She had expected indignation, perhaps even an angry retort, but not silence. Not this quiet, almost arrogant dismissal of her words. Ethan moved through the plaza, weaving past vendors and merchants, feeling the weight of countless gazes on him. Yet he kept his head high, calm, and focused. He did not need to argue to prove his worth. His actions, his confidence, and his silence spoke louder than any words could. Behind him, Leora's curiosity sparked. Most beings, when insulted, reacted with fire or fear. This human had neither. There was a depth to him she could not yet understand, and for the first time she felt an unfamiliar sense of challenge. Who was this human, who could meet her arrogance with nothing but quiet dignity? Ethan reached a quieter section of the market, where vendors sold mechanical gadgets and alien devices he had never seen. He paused at a stall displaying holographic star maps. The merchant, a small creature with 6 limbs and a translucent body, nodded at him politely. "You are far from your world, human," it said. Few of your kind venture here without fear. Ethan smiled faintly. Fear is not my choice, he replied. Observation is. The merchant's many eyes blinked in surprise and appreciation. Then you are wise beyond your years. But be cautious. The princess does not forgive easily. Ethan's calm gaze did not waver. I am aware. But I do not seek forgiveness. I seek understanding. That was the key. Humans often relied on empathy, strategy, and observation rather than brute strength or intimidation. While the Valians relied on status, power, and social dominance, humans had a subtle strength, the ability to learn quickly, adapt, and endure. Ethan knew that this strength, though not always obvious, often made humans formidable opponents and trustworthy allies. Back in the plaza, Leora had recovered from her initial shock. She had not expected the human to simply walk away. It was unusual, intriguing even. She motioned to one of her attendants to follow him discreetly. Curious about this species and this individual, Ethan moved toward a central platform, where a small crowd had gathered to watch street performers and traders. He did not notice that he was being followed. His mind was focused on the patterns of alien behavior, the subtle interactions that could reveal motives and intentions. He studied the way the aliens communicated, the slight gestures, the unspoken cues, and noted them carefully. Suddenly, a mechanical drone whirred nearby, projecting a holographic announcement. Attention! The Valian Princess Leora is present in the plaza. Observe the royal demonstration of intellect and skill. The crowd's attention shifted immediately, and some stepped back, wary of being caught too close. Ethan stayed where he was, unmoved, studying the announcement. The air seemed charged, as if expecting a confrontation. Leora appeared on a raised platform moments later, her posture regal, her expression composed but sharp. It seems the human has chosen to leave, she said, her voice carrying over the plaza. A shame. Curiosity without courage is meaningless. Some in the crowd nodded, expecting Ethan to respond. Some even whispered doubts about human resilience. Yet even from a distance, Ethan's figure remained calm, his gaze steady. Leora's curiosity deepened. Who was this human who did not rise to anger, who did not fight with words and yet carried an undeniable presence? She realized that perhaps this species was underestimated. Perhaps they had qualities worth noting. Perhaps even dangerous qualities. The plaza returned to its normal hum of activity, yet a subtle tension lingered. Ethan walked slowly toward the edge of the market, his mind alert to every sound, every movement. He did not know it yet, but this encounter would mark the beginning of something much larger than a mere insult. It was the spark of a story that would challenge assumptions, test skills, and ultimately reveal the surprising strengths of humanity to a galaxy that had long dismissed it. Even without speaking, without confrontation, Ethan Riker had made his statement. Humans were not to be underestimated. And Princess Leora, the 19-year-old alien royal who thought she could judge a human at a glance, would soon learn that lessons sometimes came in quiet, unassuming ways. As he disappeared into the winding streets of Zephyros, a subtle smile touched his lips. He did not know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing with certainty. Sometimes the most powerful statement one could make was to simply walk away, and with that, the human moved through the alien world, unseen but not unnoticed, calm but unshakable, a quiet force that would soon leave its mark on the galaxy. The moment Ethan Riker disappeared into the winding streets of Zephyros, Princess Leora's curiosity grew. She had expected anger, a protest, even fear, but not this calm, quiet confidence. Her violet eyes narrowed thoughtfully as she surveyed the crowd. The humans, she realized, had ways she did not understand, and one human in particular had piqued her interest. Prepare a challenge, she ordered her attendants, her voice carrying the subtle authority that could command hundreds with a single word. I want to see this human's true strength. The attendants exchanged nervous glances but nodded, knowing that disobeying a royal command was unwise. Leora's curiosity had the weight of a decree. Within hours, a small but secure area of Zephyros had been transformed into a controlled environment for a series of trials designed to test intelligence, skill, and resourcefulness. Meanwhile, Ethan made his way to the outskirts of the plaza, moving through a quieter sector lined with research labs and smaller workshops. He had come to Zephyros not only as a diplomat, but as an engineer, and he could not resist the opportunity to study the alien technology around him. Crystal panels, levitating tools, and data streams that shifted colors faster than he could track. He observed each carefully, taking mental notes, calculating possibilities. As he examined a device that projected a three-dimensional map of Zephyros's orbital lanes, he sensed movement behind him. Turning slowly, he saw one of Leora's attendants approaching, a holographic message hovering before them. "Princess Leora requests your presence," the attendant said, voice formal. "She wishes to present you with a series of trials." Ethan regarded the attendant for a moment before replying. "I understand. Lead the way." His voice was calm, but internally he was curious. These trials could be more than simple displays. They could be opportunities to observe alien, problem-solving methods firsthand, perhaps even to teach something unexpected in return. The journey to the trial area was tense. Leora watched from a raised observation deck as Ethan entered, noting his posture, the way he carried himself, and the subtle confidence in his eyes. Most humans, she had been told, were cautious and reactive. This one was different. The trial area was a marvel of alien engineering. Platforms hovered in mid-air, each glowing with symbols and data streams. Holographic constructs floated above, waiting to be manipulated. Some areas seemed to test dexterity and agility. Others challenged intellect with puzzles, simulations, and logic sequences. Ethan's first trial was simple on the surface but deceptively complex. Navigate a floating maze that shifted every few seconds, with holographic barriers appearing and disappearing at unpredictable intervals. While many species relied on brute, speed or telekinetic powers, humans relied on observation, timing, and adaptability. Ethan moved cautiously, noting patterns, predicting shifts, and adjusting his path. By the time he reached the exit, even Leora's attendants were impressed. "Interesting," Leora murmured. "He observes. He does not panic." The second trial tested intelligence and creativity. A series of alien devices needed to be assembled in a sequence to stabilize a simulated energy core. Many contestants from other species struggled, following instructions rigidly or relying on strength. Ethan, however, analyzed the components, understood the purpose, and improvised a method that was faster and more efficient than the provided solution. "You are clever," Leora said aloud, a faint note of admiration in her voice. "But cleverness alone will not see you through all of this." Ethan remained silent, his focus entirely on the next trial. His mind worked quickly, combining logic, intuition, and observation. He noticed small details others overlooked. The way a holographic panel reflected light differently when aligned, the subtle vibrations indicating instability, and the underlying patterns that made the puzzle solvable with creativity rather than force. The third trial was physical, though not in the traditional sense. Contestants were required to move across platforms that tested balance, speed, and precision. Gravity fluctuated, and the platforms shifted unpredictably. Ethan's human body was not the strongest or fastest among the species present, yet his reflexes and timing allowed him to navigate the course efficiently. He adjusted his steps to anticipate shifts, relying on observation and patience rather than brute force. Leora's curiosity deepened. Each success, achieved without arrogance or haste, challenged her assumptions. Most of her attendants assumed humans could not keep up. Ethan, however, had not only kept up, he had excelled. The fourth trial combined intellect, strategy, and teamwork. A simulated interstellar crisis unfolded before the contestants. A series of orbital satellites threatened to collide, and their task was to prevent catastrophe. Other species argued, overpowered equipment, or ignored minor details, causing chaos. Ethan, however, remained calm. He observed patterns, delegated where appropriate, and coordinated efforts efficiently. He noticed that some satellites required a sequence adjustment that most beings would overlook. With careful timing, he manipulated the controls to stabilize the orbit, preventing the simulated disaster entirely. A hush fell over the arena as the simulation concluded successfully. Even Leora's attendants stared, impressed despite themselves. "Remarkable," Leora said, her voice softer now, carrying no insult, only intrigue. "He does not rely on privilege or force. He relies on thought, observation, and strategy." The final trial for the day was a test of diplomacy and negotiation. Contestants were placed in a scenario where multiple alien species had conflicting interests, and success required persuading each party to cooperate. Ethan approached the task as he always did, by listening first. He understood motivations, noticed fears, and recognized opportunities for compromise. Where others would push or demand, he suggested solutions that benefited all parties, building trust and mutual respect. By the time the trial ended, it was clear that Ethan had excelled not just through intelligence or skill, but through his uniquely human qualities: empathy, creativity, adaptability, and integrity. Leora watched in silence, realizing that her initial judgment had been incomplete. This human was extraordinary in ways she had not anticipated. After the trials, the contestants were escorted to separate chambers. Ethan's chamber was quiet, minimalistic, designed for reflection and rest. He spent a few moments reviewing the events of the day, noting not just the puzzles but the reactions of those around him. Every gesture, every glance, every response was data, and he absorbed it all. Leora remained in her observation deck, staring at the human's figure in the distance. She had expected annoyance or fear to define the human's behavior. Instead, she saw calm, focus, and competence. For the first time, she questioned her assumptions about the species she had dismissed. She even wondered, quietly, if humans possessed qualities her own people had overlooked in their pursuit of power and dominance. That evening, the palace sent a message to Ethan, a formal invitation to a private discussion with Princess Leora. The tone was respectful, but carried an unspoken challenge. Ethan accepted without hesitation. His curiosity was piqued, and he sensed that this meeting could reveal more than just alien customs. It could reveal truths about strength, understanding, and diplomacy in a galaxy that had often underestimated humans. The next day, the trials continued. Leora herself began designing challenges specifically to test Ethan's creativity and adaptability, rather than simple strength or skill. She placed him in simulations where conventional approaches failed, expecting him to falter. Yet time and again, Ethan found solutions that were both unexpected and effective, combining logic, intuition, and moral judgment. Other contestants whispered about the human who could not be defeated, whose calm demeanor and ingenuity seemed almost unnatural. Aliens who prided themselves on intelligence and experience found themselves struggling to match his methods. And through it all, Ethan remained humble, focused on the task rather than the attention. By the end of the second day, even Princess Leora had to admit internally that the human possessed qualities worthy of respect. She did not voice it aloud. Pride and habit restrained her. But the seed of admiration had been planted, and with it, a subtle transformation began, not just in her perception of humans, but in the potential for diplomacy and understanding between their species. Ethan, meanwhile, walked the corridors of the trial area, observing, learning, and reflecting. He understood that his challenge was not just about completing trials or proving himself. It was about showing that humans could rise to meet any test, adapt to any environment, and act with integrity even when underestimated. Each step he took reinforced the quiet strength of humanity, a strength built not on dominance or aggression, but on creativity, resilience, and wisdom. As the day drew to a close, Leora watched him once more. The 19-year-old princess realized that she had underestimated not just a human, but the potential of an entire species. And for the first time, she felt a spark of curiosity and challenge that went beyond arrogance. It was genuine intrigue. Ethan did not speak, did not boast, and did not demand recognition. He simply acted, observed, and learned. And in doing so, he demonstrated a truth that the Valians, and perhaps the galaxy, would come to understand. Underestimating humans was a mistake no one should ever make. The following morning on Zephyros, the skies glimmered with the soft green of the rising twin suns. The marketplace below still hummed with life, but at the edge of the city, a specially constructed arena awaited Ethan Riker. This was no ordinary test. It was a set of trials designed not just to challenge intellect or skill, but to push endurance, creativity, and strategy to their limits. Princess Leora observed from her private balcony, a mixture of pride and irritation twisting her violet eyes. The first trials had proven the human extraordinary, but she was not finished testing him. "He cannot be so clever by accident," she muttered to herself. "I need to see how far he can go when the stakes are real." The arena itself was breathtaking. Platforms floated in midair, moving unpredictably. Holographic obstacles appeared without warning. Puzzles floated in three-dimensional space, and alien technology hummed with energy that reacted to the smallest touch. Even seasoned competitors found the environment overwhelming. Ethan, however, stepped in calmly, taking a moment to observe before acting. The first challenge of the day was a demonstration of agility and perception. Platforms hovered above a void, some transparent, some solid, shifting in patterns that seemed random at first glance. Contestants had to cross the void without touching the unstable surfaces. Other species lunged forward, using telekinetic powers or brute strength to maintain balance. Many stumbled, falling into safety nets below. Ethan, in contrast, moved with a calculated rhythm. He observed patterns in the platform's movements, noted subtle vibrations, and adjusted each step with precision. Slowly but steadily, he crossed the entire expanse without faltering, his calm focus drawing astonished looks from spectators and even Leora herself. "Impressive," Leora whispered, her tone tinged with frustration. "He relies on observation and timing, not power or authority." The second trial was more intricate, testing intellect and adaptability. A series of alien artifacts, each shaped differently and glowing with unknown energy, had to be arranged in a sequence to stabilize a floating energy matrix. The rules were minimal, leaving contestants to figure out the logic themselves. Many participants relied on brute force or guesswork, and most failed quickly. Ethan, however, took a methodical approach. He studied each artifact's responses, tested subtle interactions, and predicted outcomes. Using a combination of logic and intuition, he not only completed the sequence but did so in a way that optimized energy flow beyond the intended parameters, drawing impressed murmurs from the audience. Leora tilted her head, her lips pressed in thought. He is not just smart, he sees connections others miss. She felt a mixture of admiration and vexation. This human was challenging her assumptions of superiority at every turn. Next came a simulation of strategic warfare. Contestants were placed in holographic command centers, each controlling a fleet of ships tasked with defending a system under attack. Most relied on aggressive tactics or raw firepower, yet the simulation was designed to punish such predictability. Ethan observed the enemy's patterns, predicted attacks, and coordinated defenses with precision. He adjusted his fleet strategically, diverting resources and using decoys to outmaneuver the simulated adversaries. Within minutes, the attacks were neutralized and his fleet emerged intact and efficient. Some spectators gasped. Others whispered among themselves. Leora's expression was unreadable, but inside a realization was forming. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and able to turn disadvantages into advantages. She was witnessing firsthand a quality that her species often overlooked: adaptability. The fourth trial combined diplomacy and problem-solving. Contestants were presented with multiple alien factions, each with conflicting demands over a shared resource. Success required negotiation, empathy, and clever compromise. Many participants tried to assert dominance or use threats, leading to stalemates and failure. Ethan, however, listened. He observed the underlying motivations of each faction, noticed what each valued most, and proposed solutions that balanced interests. He mediated disagreements, built trust, and achieved a compromise that satisfied all parties, an outcome none of the other contestants had achieved. Leora watched closely, unable to hide her growing respect. He does not dominate. He inspires cooperation, and that perhaps is even more powerful than force. The fifth trial was designed to test endurance and adaptability under stress. Contestants were placed in a rapidly changing environment where gravity shifted, platforms moved unpredictably, and holographic barriers appeared and disappeared. The task was to reach the center of the arena while avoiding hazards. Others panicked, struggling to maintain balance or direction. Ethan, however, remained calm, analyzing shifts, calculating movements, and adjusting his approach in real time. His human body was not the strongest, but his focus, reflexes, and adaptability allowed him to navigate obstacles others could not. Slowly, steadily, he reached the center, completing the challenge without injury. Leora, watching, realized that humans possessed a quiet kind of strength, resilience. They could endure situations that would overwhelm others, maintain composure under pressure, and think clearly when most beings faltered. After the trials, the contestants were brought to a central chamber for reflection and evaluation. Ethan sat quietly reviewing the events in his mind. He considered not only his own performance but the reactions of the others. Each trial had revealed something about alien strengths and weaknesses, and each had allowed him to demonstrate uniquely human qualities: creativity, empathy, adaptability, and calm decisiveness. Leora entered the chamber moments later, her presence commanding attention. She regarded Ethan carefully, her usual playful arrogance softened by genuine curiosity. "You have exceeded expectations," she said, her voice steady. "Most species would falter at even one of these challenges. You have completed all with remarkable skill and insight." Ethan nodded politely. "I appreciate the opportunity," he replied simply. "The challenges are designed well. They allow one to learn, not just to compete." Leora's lips curved into a subtle smile, her pride still intact but tempered by recognition. "Indeed, it is rare to see a being who can adapt, observe, and act without ego." "Humans are more capable than I anticipated." Ethan offered no comment. He understood that recognition from Leora was not necessary. What mattered was the impact of actions, the proof of skill, and the demonstration of integrity. That evening, the palace transmitted a message inviting Ethan to a private meeting with Leora. The message was formal, yet carried an unspoken tone of challenge. She wished to speak with him not as a competitor, but as a being who had caught her attention and, perhaps, challenged her understanding of human potential. The meeting was arranged in a garden suspended above the city, filled with floating streams of water, glowing plants, and delicate pathways. Leora awaited him, her expression composed, regal, and faintly amused. "You have proven yourself today," she said when he arrived. "Most humans would have struggled, yet you succeeded. Tell me, what drives you? Is it pride, ambition, or something else?" Ethan considered her question. "I do not act for pride or ambition. I act to understand, to learn, and to solve problems. Actions more than words define who we are." Leora's gaze softened slightly. "You are unusual. Most beings would have reacted with anger, fear, or desperation when insulted. You did nothing but walk away." "That was not weakness," Ethan replied calmly. "It was choice. There is power in restraint just as there is power in action. Both are needed to succeed." The princess studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps I have underestimated humans," she admitted quietly. "Perhaps I assumed too much about strength and skill based on appearances and assumptions." Ethan inclined his head, a faint smile touching his lips. "Underestimation can be dangerous," he said, "for those who assume and for those who act." For the first time, Leora felt the stirrings of genuine respect. This human was not merely clever or skilled, he was thoughtful, perceptive, and unshakable in his confidence. And she realized that her initial insult, meant to demean, had instead revealed something extraordinary, a being who could match wits, endurance, and strategy at levels few could comprehend. The sun began to set over Zephyros, casting long shadows across the floating gardens. Leora walked alongside Ethan briefly, silent but reflective. She knew that the trials were far from over, that her challenge had only begun, and that this human had qualities that could inspire, surprise, and perhaps even change the Valian Empire's perception of humans entirely. Ethan left the palace that evening, with the same calm composure he had maintained throughout the trials. His mind was alert, noting details of the trials, observing Leora's reactions and considering the possibilities that lay ahead. He understood that the challenges were more than tests. They were opportunities to demonstrate human qualities that were often underestimated across the galaxy: creativity, resilience, diplomacy, and intelligence. And for Princess Leora, the 19-year-old royal who had sought to judge him, the trials had sparked something unexpected: a sense of curiosity, challenge, and even admiration for the human who had walked away from insult and risen to excellence in every test. Ethan Riker had proven, without words, that humans could meet any challenge. And Leora, though proud and accustomed to superiority, was beginning to realize that she had much. The next morning on Zephyros dawned bright and clear, the twin suns casting a warm glow over the floating city. The grand arena prepared for its most challenging trial yet, a simulation of a real interstellar crisis. This was no ordinary test. It was designed to measure intellect, courage, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. Princess Leora observed from her private balcony, her violet eyes scanning the arena below. "This trial will show his true character," she murmured. "Not skill, not intelligence, but his judgment when everything is at stake." Ethan Riker entered the arena calmly, noting the unusual tension. The walls displayed holographic star maps, alert systems, and orbiting satellites. The simulation projected a scenario where multiple satellites, each crucial to planetary defense and communication, were at risk of collision due to a sudden meteor shower in nearby space. Failure would result in catastrophic damage. Other contestants panicked immediately, rushing to stabilize the satellites without fully analyzing the situation. Aliens relied on brute force, speed, or overwhelming energy to push devices into position. Many miscalculated, accidentally worsening the situation. The simulation reacted in real time, sending alerts and visual warnings that intensified stress. Ethan stood still for a moment, taking in the full scope. Unlike others, he did not act impulsively. His human instincts told him that understanding the problem fully before intervening would lead to the best solution. He scanned the satellite orbits, calculated trajectories, and noted patterns in the meteor shower. The simulation began sending alerts of imminent collision. Lights flashed red, holographic screens displayed damage estimates, and a countdown timer appeared, ticking down toward disaster. Ethan moved deliberately, accessing the controls with a clear strategy. He began stabilizing satellites that were closest to collision first, adjusting trajectories with precise calculations rather than brute force. Leora watched closely. Most humans she had observed in past interactions would have panicked, acting recklessly. This human, however, moved calmly and efficiently, demonstrating not only intelligence but courage and patience. Suddenly, one satellite began to destabilize unexpectedly. Others in the arena froze, unsure how to respond. Ethan quickly analyzed the satellite's feedback, noticing a subtle energy fluctuation that indicated a minor flaw in its stabilization system. Without hesitation, he applied a calculated adjustment that stabilized it, preventing a chain reaction that could have destroyed the simulation entirely. A murmur ran through the observers. Even Leora's attendants looked surprised. The princess herself remained silent, her eyes narrowing in astonishment. She realized that Ethan's calm decisiveness, his ability to remain focused under pressure, was unlike anything she had witnessed in other species. The next challenge in the simulation required coordinating multiple satellites simultaneously, predicting their movements while anticipating incoming meteors. Other contestants struggled, trying to control each satellite individually without understanding the broader pattern. Ethan, however, thought strategically. He grouped satellites by trajectory, assigned priority levels, and coordinated their movements with precise timing. As he executed his plan one by one, the satellites aligned safely, avoiding collisions. The simulation's alerts gradually subsided, replaced by visual confirmations of success. Where others had caused chaos, Ethan had created order through observation, planning, and execution. Leora's fascination grew. "He does not rush, he adapts. He solves problems that others would fail at," she whispered, "and he does it quietly, without showing off." The final portion of the trial tested judgment. A meteor of unusual size approached the simulated planetary system. Diverting it required coordinating all satellites simultaneously, while calculating complex gravitational effects. Any error could cause catastrophic damage. Ethan paused, analyzing the meteor's trajectory, the satellite's energy capacities, and the environmental factors. He realized that the standard approach, pushing the meteor off course directly, would likely fail due to gravitational distortions. Instead, he devised an alternative, a chain maneuver using satellite energy fields to gradually redirect the meteor along a safe path. Time was critical. The countdown ticked relentlessly. Ethan worked efficiently, adjusting the fields, monitoring energy levels, and compensating for shifts caused by the meteor's movement. The other contestants tried to follow conventional methods, panicked, and failed. Slowly, the meteor's trajectory changed. It diverted safely away from inhabited systems, and the satellites stabilized. The simulation signaled success. The arena erupted in astonished murmurs. The trial, designed to challenge intellect, courage, and judgment simultaneously, had been completed flawlessly by a human. Leora rose from her seat, her expression one of reluctant admiration. "He does not just think, he understands. He acts decisively when hesitation could be fatal," she murmured. "He has the kind of judgment our species often lacks." The princess approached Ethan after the trial, stepping into the arena quietly. "You are extraordinary," she said, her usual playful arrogance softened by respect. "Most species would have panicked. Most would have failed. Yet you succeeded, calmly, efficiently, perfectly." Ethan inclined his head politely. "The situation required observation, analysis, and measured action," he replied. "Rushing or acting impulsively would have caused failure. Calm decisions are often stronger than fast ones." Leora's violet eyes studied him closely. "You are not only clever, but courageous. Most beings act out of pride or fear. You act out of reason and principle." Ethan's calm gaze met hers. "I do not act to impress nor to dominate. I act to solve problems and understand the situation fully. Actions speak louder than words, and results matter more than appearances." For the first time, Leora felt humbled by a human. Not humiliated, but aware that she had underestimated not just a single human, but the potential of an entire species. The quiet strength of his intelligence, courage, and judgment challenged her perception of superiority. The trial had also drawn attention from other species in the arena. Aliens who had been dismissive of humans now looked upon Ethan with respect. Some whispered about the remarkable calm and skill he had displayed. Others nodded silently, acknowledging that he had achieved what they could not. Leora walked beside him briefly, her voice softer than before. "Your people. You have qualities we often ignore. Strength is not always in muscle or power. Sometimes it is in thought, in observation, in patience, and in courage. You have shown all of these today." Ethan nodded, acknowledging the compliment without pride. "Strength comes in many forms," he said. "Humans have learned that intelligence, empathy, and adaptability are just as important as physical power. Sometimes they are more important." The princess remained silent for a long moment, watching the calm determination in his eyes. She realized that the trials had been about more than testing skill. They had been about understanding character. And in that, Ethan had demonstrated something rare, a human quality that could inspire, unite, and endure. That evening, the palace transmitted a message to Ethan, a formal recognition of his achievements and an invitation to speak with Leora regarding the final trial, a task designed to challenge not only skill and intelligence, but moral judgment and leadership. The final trial, Leora explained privately, would simulate a crisis affecting multiple planets. Decisions made by the participants would have consequences for entire populations within the simulation. The challenge would test not only intellect and courage, but also empathy, foresight, and responsibility. Ethan accepted without hesitation. For him, the trial was another opportunity to observe, understand, and act wisely. He knew that humans' greatest strength lay not only in their intellect, but in their ability to consider consequences, value life, and act with integrity. Leora, meanwhile, found herself reflecting on her own assumptions. She had begun the trials confident that humans were weak, limited, and easily dismissed. But each challenge had revealed qualities she had never expected: calm decisiveness, creative problem-solving, adaptability, empathy, and courage under pressure. As the twin suns set over Zephyros, casting long shadows across the floating gardens and the arena, Leora realized that she had learned a lesson herself. Underestimating a species or an individual could lead to surprising revelations. And in Ethan Riker, she had encountered a being who embodied the very best qualities of humanity: intelligence, courage, and an unwavering moral compass. The final trial would come soon. Stakes would be higher, consequences more significant, and challenges greater. But both princess and human knew one thing: humanity, underestimated and often dismissed, had qualities that could shine brilliantly even in the most dangerous and complex situations. And when the final trial began, Ethan would show once more why humans were a species to be reckoned with, not through words, but through action, thought, and unwavering integrity. The final day of the trials dawned bright over Zephyros, the twin suns casting long golden shadows across the floating city. Today was the culmination of all that had come before, a challenge designed not just to test intelligence, skill, or agility, but moral judgment, leadership, and the ability to make decisions affecting many lives at once. Princess Leora observed from her private balcony, her expression a mixture of pride, curiosity, and a trace of humility. The human she had once insulted and expected to falter had proven himself in ways that few species could. Each trial had revealed not only intelligence but patience, courage, and integrity. Today, she thought, would be the true measure of his character. Ethan Riker entered the grand arena, his calm presence immediately drawing the attention of all spectators. The arena was unlike anything he had seen before. Holographic projections of multiple planets floated above platforms, connected by streams of glowing energy. Each planet had settlements, populations, and resources represented in precise detail. The challenge was clear. A simulated interstellar crisis threatened to destroy lives and systems unless he acted decisively. Other participants looked tense, their movements rushed and uncertain. Most species relied on immediate, forceful solutions, hoping to dominate the problem rather than understand it. Ethan, as always, paused to observe. He assessed the situation, noted patterns, and considered the consequences of each possible action. The first stage involved stabilizing planetary defense systems under attack from a simulated cosmic storm. Satellites had been damaged, communication networks were failing, and energy resources were limited. Most contestants panicked, overloading controls or attempting direct solutions that only worsened instability. Ethan, however, worked systematically. He prioritized the most critical systems first, delegating less urgent tasks to automated controls. He observed the cosmic storm's behavior, predicting shifts and anticipating failures. Gradually, the planetary defenses stabilized, avoiding what could have been catastrophic damage. Leora watched silently. Her violet eyes were fixed on him, noting the precision and calm with which he moved. She realized that human strength was not just in physical ability or cleverness, it was in judgment, adaptability, and restraint. The next stage tested coordination among multiple planetary populations, each with different needs and resources. Conflict had arisen over who would receive priority protection. Many participants attempted to force a solution through dominance, making unilateral decisions that alienated populations. Ethan approached the task differently. He communicated with each population through simulation interfaces, observing their priorities and understanding their fears. He proposed solutions that balanced the needs of all involved, creating a plan that minimized harm and maximized cooperation. The other contestants were stunned. None had considered negotiation or empathy as part of the solution. Ethan had shown that intelligence alone was not enough. Understanding and ethical judgment were equally important. The final stage simulated a sudden, unexpected crisis. A meteor of enormous size was projected to strike a central planet. Time was short, and the solution required the coordination of all systems, satellites, and populations to prevent disaster. Ethan analyzed the meteor's trajectory, noting gravitational effects and energy patterns. He realized that conventional methods, direct deflection or simple evacuation, would fail. Instead, he devised a chain maneuver using satellites, planetary shields, and population coordination to redirect the meteor along a safe path. As he executed the plan, small issues arose. An energy surge threatened to overload a shield. A satellite drifted off course and a population hesitated to follow evacuation protocols. Ethan adapted immediately, reallocating resources, adjusting satellite positioning, and using clear communication to guide populations effectively. The countdown clock ticked down relentlessly, creating a sense of urgency that caused others to panic. Ethan remained calm, focused, and decisive. Slowly, the meteor's path changed, avoiding inhabited areas and stabilizing the planetary system. The simulation confirmed success. A hushed silence fell over the arena, followed by a ripple of astonishment and admiration. Ethan had not only solved a nearly impossible crisis, but had done so with strategy, foresight, and ethical judgment. He had combined intelligence, courage, and empathy in a way that few could match. Princess Leora descended to the arena floor to meet him. Her usual playful arrogance was replaced by genuine respect. "You have done more than I expected," she said. "You have not only completed the trials, but you have shown something remarkable. Humans can combine intellect, courage, and integrity in ways that few other species can." Ethan inclined his head politely. "I acted as I could," he replied. "Understanding the problem fully and considering consequences is as important as solving it. Rushing or forcing solutions often causes more harm than good." Leora's violet eyes softened. "Most beings would act from pride, fear, or ambition. You act from principle and reason. You walk calmly even in the face of insult, and yet you respond decisively when action is needed. That is rare and impressive." The princess paused, then continued. "I admit I underestimated you. I underestimated humans. Your species' potential is far greater than I imagined. You do not rely solely on strength or cunning. You rely on thought, courage, and morality. That is admirable." Ethan smiled faintly. "Recognition is not necessary," he said. "What matters is the result. Actions speak louder than words. Results define value." For a long moment, Leora studied him, absorbing the truth of his words. She realized that humans were capable of extraordinary achievements when guided by intelligence, integrity, and courage. They were not to be dismissed, underestimated, or judged by appearances alone. The audience in the arena began to applaud, first softly, then more loudly as the significance of Ethan's accomplishments became clear. Other species looked upon him with newfound respect. Even competitors who had doubted him acknowledged his extraordinary abilities. Leora addressed the assembly, her voice carrying authority and admiration. "Today we have witnessed a human who embodies intelligence, courage, and ethical judgment. We have seen what can happen when a being acts thoughtfully, decisively, and with integrity. Let this serve as a reminder. Underestimating humans is a mistake no one should make." Ethan remained calm, allowing the recognition to occur without pride. He had not acted to impress nor to dominate. He had acted according to principle, demonstrating the best qualities of humanity. Later, in private, Leora approached him once more. "You have changed my perspective," she admitted. "I came to these trials expecting to challenge a human, perhaps even to embarrass you. Instead, I have learned something important. Humans possess qualities we often overlook: creativity, resilience, empathy, and courage. You have proven that actions, not words, define greatness." Ethan nodded. "It is easy to underestimate any species or individual. Observation and understanding often reveal strengths that are not immediately visible. Humans have learned to rely on intelligence, adaptability, and collaboration to overcome challenges." Leora smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "I will not forget this lesson. Nor will the Valian Empire. You have demonstrated the true potential of your people." In the days that followed, the results of the trials were shared across Zephyros and beyond. Human ingenuity, calm judgment, and courage became known to many species who had once dismissed them. Ethan Riker's name spread not because of arrogance or loud words, but because of actions that spoke for themselves. Diplomatic relations between humans and Valians improved significantly. Leora herself began to advocate for cooperation, inspired by the qualities she had witnessed firsthand. She treated humans not as inferior beings, but as partners, equals, and even exemplars of strategic and moral intelligence. Ethan, for his part, continued his mission quietly. He negotiated technology exchanges, shared knowledge, and observed alien practices, always learning, always acting with integrity. The trials had not changed him personally. He remained humble, focused, and calm. But they had demonstrated to the galaxy the strength of human potential. Months later, Leora reflected on the events. She remembered her initial insult, the moment she had dismissed him without thought, and she realized that true strength sometimes appeared in silence, in patience, in calm observation. Humans, she concluded, were a species that could meet any challenge with intelligence, courage, and moral integrity. Ethan Riker's quiet, unwavering actions had left a lasting impression, not just on the princess, but on all who witnessed them. They had shown that humans could rise to any challenge, adapt to any environment, and act with a combination of skill, courage, and ethical judgment that few species could rival. And so the trials concluded. The princess and the human had both learned from each other. Leora had learned humility, respect, and the value of observing before judging. Ethan had reinforced the timeless human principle. Underestimation is a weakness in those who judge, and excellence often comes quietly, through action and integrity. As Ethan walked away from the arena one final time, the crowd parted respectfully. He did not speak, did not boast, and did not seek attention. He simply moved forward, a quiet testament to the strength of humanity. Princess Leora watched him go, her heart and mind forever changed by the lessons he